Hi everyone, and welcome to another Experian Sip and Solve. For those of you new to these sessions, this is where we get to share some of the insights and the learnings that we've developed from working with our clients around understanding their commercial customers. I'm Darren Dunda, a data consultant with Experian Business Information Services, and today I'll be working with Heath Foley, our insurance team lead, and talking about digitalization and how it can help with the commercial insurance customer experience and the application process. As is traditional with our sip and solves, we both have a cup of coffee in front of us that we'll be sipping throughout the session. Hopefully you have something good in front of you as well. Since we have about 15 minutes for this coffee break, we're going to jump right into it. Heath, first off, thank you for joining me today and sharing your years of experience of working with commercial insurance customers.
Well, Darren, thanks for having me. I look forward to the discussion.
Digitalization and seeking a better client experience has been a rising trend for a lot of years now. And with the onset of COVID, new technologies, and of course, customers just demanding a better client experience, this has really started to accelerate the movement. How have you seen this trend playing out with your customers in the commercial insurance space?
Well, I've just really seen it pick up a lot over the last, probably call it 3 years. Right around when COVID started, we started to hear a lot more around, what can we do with really streamlining the process and making it a lot easier to do business and with the clients, with the insureds, and with the brokers, wherever they sit within the ecosystem. So digitization has just really exploded. And as we're talking to, executives within our client base, it always seems to be one of the top, if not the top, the second or third top priorities within each organization.
Yeah, I've seen pretty much the same with my insurance customers as well. And while onboarding new clients will always be multi-channeled, so you'll see phone-based, email-based, and a lot of other access points to getting applications in. I think digital is really where I've seen the most lift for most of the carriers, and I guess it's really around automation and straight through process that they're able to use with this kind of digital experience. Um, I should point out that when we talk, as we're talking about this automation and the straight through processing and a better client experience, it's not just for the clients, the end client buying the policy. We're also talking about agents who are trying to onboard these customers with carriers. Is that pretty much what you've been seeing also, Heath?
Absolutely, because we're seeing our carrier clients going to market in a variety of different ways, whether they're going through a direct channel, whether they're going through independent agents, exclusive agents. So we really see a lot of different distribution channels. So as we're working with our clients, we work with them in a variety of different ways. In addition to just working with carriers, we also work with a lot of brokers, MGAs, MGUs out there in the market. So we support a lot of different clients. So it really depends on where they sit within that ecosystem and how we can really help to streamline and digitize the process.
Now, Heath, on the screen is a industry quote that pretty much mirrors some of what we're saying, and it's really pointing out how critical it is for insurance carriers to have a strong digital customer experience. With all the numerous digital tools like APIs, real-time quotes, automation, what do you see is gaining really the most focus from your clients?
Well, I mean, APIs are the key. I mean, what we're seeing is more and more clients wanting to consume the data via APIs. At Experian, we have our what we call our API hub, which is an easy to use tool that enables you to go in and take a look at the APIs to easily be able to test those and see how they could work in your environment. But I would say that's the number one focus. When we're talking about integrating our data to help clients streamline their process, it's all API driven at this point.
I agree. The clients I'm working with, again, that API real-time connection and the data that they're able to get, that painting that clear picture for their customers and a clear view of the risk involved in those customers is really what they're all focusing on right now. Now, we've been talking a little bit about the carrier, what the carriers are looking for. We've been talking about some of the tools, the APIs, things like that. But let's discuss the why. What are the issues your clients are talking about, and what are they trying to overcome to get a better customer or agent experience?
Well, a lot of it's about speed. It's about being able to turn around a quote in a timely fashion, being able to make it easy for the insured or the broker to fill in information when they're looking at things such as like a prefill. So being able to not ask for 40 pieces of information. What can we do to eliminate some of that? So they can type in, the name of the business, the address, city, state, zip, and be able to populate as much information as possible. And then also, when you're utilizing a third-party data provider, you're able to look and be able to reduce errors in typing, because you're not having to fill out as many of the fields within like an application, as an example. So, anything that can be done from a speed and really turning the process around in a much timelier fashion just really makes the overall customer experience so much smoother, and really helps to eliminate any of that friction within that process that I know carriers are really trying to focus on eliminating moving forward.
Yeah, I also hear about that challenge of bind a quote time with brokers going to the fastest carrier to provide a policy. Heath, it's really about, like you said, error reduction, data verification, premium leakage avoidance, and then just quicker responses. And really, prefill addresses all these issues, correct?
Absolutely. Prefill has been something that has been, talked about and leveraged, a lot over the past few years, but we just continue to see more and more in this area. So, what can we do to help just reduce the amount of keystrokes? Because oftentimes, if it's, say, an individual business is going in to a direct carrier, if they start typing in information and they're being asked for all this information, and they could get distracted and leave. And, to try to avoid abandonment from an application, as an example. So anything we can do from a data company to help our carriers provide simpler, easier way to do business, it really enables that process, and really ensures just a more streamlined process for the carriers.
And prefill is really a simple process, really. It starts with the agent or the customer coming to a website or a onboarding portal, filling in, picking a kind of coverage they want, and then filling in 5 pieces of data: the name of the company, address, city, state, zip. And from there, Experian can return back a match for that company that the owner or agent can confirm, yes, that's the company that I am. And once that confirmation goes through, the actual quote process can start. And it really, as you said, alleviates the need for the client or agent to key in a lot of information that's already known and already in the Experian database.
You're exactly right. It works. It's that simple, and especially with the APIs and the different platforms and tools that are out there that are mostly API enabled, it allows it for a very easy process to be able to do that.
Since we're talking about the data, can you really address the standard data elements that you would get for a prefill, and also the data that the underwriters would get on the backside to help them make their decision?
Absolutely. Here on the screen here, it shows a few of the examples. We start to look at pre-filling a lot of just information on the business. So being able to, pre-fill things such as a URL, a tax ID, an industry that they're in, number of employees, sales. There's a variety of different kinds of information that can be pre-filled. As we start to look at, some corporate registration detail, business contact information. So there's just a number of different ways that we can pre-fill this data. We've got, from an Experian perspective, when we talk about our core data, we've got 700 to 800 different variables, and then we've got a lot of alternative data that's outside of that. So there's just a variety of different types of data and types of variables that we can help pre-fill. And the great thing about that API hub that I talked about earlier, it really shows and displays all of the different opportunities that you can look at in pre-filling data.
And the data for the prefill is really the identification information. And on the backside, with that, once it's verified and it goes to the actual quoting process, the agents get the actual decisioning type data.
Absolutely, because risk data is core to what we do. So we work with our carriers in providing risk data to help with underwriting and pricing, and being able to help make those decisions in a much faster way. So in addition to pre-filling the data with some of the different variables we were just showing, we also can append that to that risk data, which is primarily, how clients utilize our data. So they can put that, whether they're utilizing our models or their own underwriting models, but our data can fuel that whole process.
Prefill really provides three critical solutions. It's frictionless. You have just 5 pieces of data to get the access to the client information that's already in the Experian database. It provides speed, creating faster and easier customer experiences with real-time data through our APIs. And then the data itself, decisioning data and analytics to make informed underwriting decisions. Heath, prefill reduces the unknowns, the errors, the application abandonment you mentioned earlier, all this from the process, and enables the underwriters to do their jobs more efficiently.
Absolutely. It's data is such an important piece, for the insurance business, and as I'm sure you all know, and being able to provide more data to carriers to help with whether it's the underwriting or pricing process, or it's just in the front end around reducing the friction in the process. There's a variety of different ways that Experian data can help support. Your business, and really being able to help reduce the friction within that overall process. Because again, it gets back to speed. Speed is the key. Being able to turn those quotes around, being able to make the best decision on those quotes and the pricing decisions, and being able to get that information back in a timely manner really enables you to make sure that you're able to maximize on your growth opportunities.
And we should point out that included in this API setups that they're going to have to do to actually use prefill, that we have data consultants like myself, integration experts that are standing by to help the customers get through this process.
Absolutely. One thing that is really important when we're talking to our clients, or whether it's even a company that's not working with us, is we really go in and really look at the entire process. Where is data coming into the organization? How is it coming into the organization? And what are the different work streams that come through that? And by being able to do that, we really can see and make decisions, or make ideas, recommendations on how our data can support it. But it's a real collaborative effort, and the more that we know from our clients or prospects that we're working with about that process, it really enables us to make the best recommendations. And people like Darren really do a great job of making it very easy to consume. And then once we determine the variables or the information that you need, we've got a team on the back end that can help with API deployment, and help with some of the technical pieces that go along with that.
All right. Now, we discussed the standard prefill, the underwriting. You touched a little bit on the alternate data. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on what alternate data, what other data that is coming through our APIs that our insurance carriers are using today?
Absolutely. So we're doing a lot around property data. We also have social media data that's leveraged a lot. As an example, some of the variables that we do within property data that's heavily leveraged, within social media data that's leveraged within prefill, are things such as like hours of operation, being able to better understand a business outside of like traditional NAICS codes, and being able to understand, is it a bar, or is it a breakfast restaurant, as an example? Do they have a liquor license? So there's a variety of different variables that can be leveraged. OSHA data is another area for people that are doing more with their workers' comp that we're starting to see more and more. So one thing I'll say is we continue to add new data to our API hub, so our clients can review that and be able to see other opportunities out there. And if we don't have the data, oftentimes we can go out and create some new data connections.
All right, well, that's really all we have for you today. I'd like to thank Heath for joining us and sharing his time with us. And of course, we'd like to thank our audience for spending their coffee break with us. Hopefully, some of the key takeaways from Heath's insights and prefills that you see on the slide here can help your company and your organization with your customer experience improvement efforts for your commercial line products. If you have any questions or want to learn more about what we talked about today, feel free to use our link to our private Facebook group to join us and chat with us. Also, if you want to get notified of future Sip and Solves, make sure you subscribe by joining the list here. And again, thank you for sharing your coffee break with us. And now it's time to go back to work.